Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, and anyone and everyone in the room. Thank you for taking the time to stay on for this or for coming for it itself. My name is Leslie Lim. I'm not his publisher. His publisher could not be here tonight. I'm standing in for Goek King, and I am not a poet. Let's be clear to say that at this in this particular setting. I'm here really to just to talk with Gwee about the book and how it came about. And I'm going to jump right into it. So I'm going to sit and we can begin. Gwee, can you hear me? You hear me okay?
Sorry?
No.
Sorry? Wait. Okay.
Yes. So Gwee, you said it took 2 years to decide on the title of this book.
Yes. Let me start at
Yes.
the
Beginning.
very beginning. I think the book itself began with the poems. The poems were things that I have been writing and posting on the internet during the time when we all couldn't see each other face to face. And so they have been appearing. If you see them, you see them. But some of them I try not to put up because I think it's quite sensitive, quite controversial, and then I'm going to get all sorts of people coming to my wall to scold me. So I kept those. When we came to putting together the poems, I took those in and I chose the ones that would give a narrative to the book. And so when this came together, it was about like just at the end of the pandemic, when WHO announced that it is over. So at that time, I think it's a good, period to start to consolidate and come up with a book. I know that other people have written about COVID-19, either in poetry or in comics or in prose. But when you read my book, you'll realize that it's quite different. Because those books, they either were about a certain part of the pandemic, usually the circuit breaker period, or they're about how the government manages to, save Singapore, and then it's kind of like part celebratory book about how things have proceeded. And then very quickly, by the time we reached the end of the pandemic, nobody really wanted to talk about it. And so there was this whole period of, what do they call it? The pandemic fatigue, right?
Yes.
Yes, if you remember that, nobody wants to talk about the pandemic. And so that was a time when actually I said, okay, now that it's properly over, I have the whole experience and I want it out in the book. And when I approached Ed King about it, Ed King was like,
Pandemic fatigue.
yeah, pandemic fatigue, people don't want to read about COVID-19 anymore. And I said, yeah, but my book is kind of different. It's firstly complete in a way that the other books weren't. And it deals with the whole range of experiences, what we went through. And it's not an institutional experience. It is on the ground. Me struggling day by day during that period, the kind of absurdity that we were pushed through, the kind of things we see in the news, those things, that we experience, the horror, the fear of going out and then, catching it. If you remember, there was a time where we don't even know how it's spreading. And then there's a time when we kind of like start to theorize about the trajectory of saliva, how far the saliva can go before it hit you. And that kind of stuff, it's really quite silly when you think back. But at those moments, we were really quite gripped with fear. So all those little moments, I feel when I look back at what I had, I felt if we put together, it's really quite an awesome spread of experiences we all went through together. Individually, we experienced it similarly, which is quite extraordinary. And so I did that as an idea. As I said, publisher Goek King and I kind of like disagreed on the focus. I think I think he thought that at one stage, the best way to proceed is to have it about a lesson that never again, we will not let this happen to us again. We will be more prepared the next time, which is, I find a bit didactic. For me, it's more, I feel as I increasingly edited the book over 2 years, I felt I wanted it to be more about what was that all about? What were those 3 years about? Did we come out any different? Did that period mean anything to any of us? And if it did, what does it mean? So it's more a kind of open-ended thing for you to answer. Because as you read this book, one thing I hope you'll start to discover is it starts with innocence. It really did. We were all really stupid. It starts with innocence, and then things get complicated, and then it gets more and more personal. So we couldn't agree. After the book was, the manuscript was done, the next thing we couldn't agree was a title.
Yeah.
Sorry, coming to that. The thing that we couldn't agree was a title. I remember mine was something quite pretentious, something like continuance of our being, the continuance of my being. And then he says, no, he prefers something like the years that will pass, or the passing, or something like that. So we couldn't agree at all on the title, and so that held back the project from proceeding for again some time. And then one day, just this year, I woke up and I was like, yeah, I think I got it, right? And then Aking wrote to me and said, what? So what is it, right? And I said, look how we have already forgotten. And he just said, yes, okay, we'll just run with this. And because both of us finally met in this title. But it took me a while before I realized that even this title itself is an allusion. It's an allusion to, and I didn't even realize this, it's an allusion to a famous line from a very famous film written by Marguerite Duras called Hiroshima Mon Amour. There's a line in there that says, look how we are already forgetting. I'm already forgetting. It's a story about post-war trauma set in Hiroshima using two lovers that are breaking apart as an allegory for what's happening. How we are forgetting things that used to matter. And I did not realize that I actually lifted that from that movie until actually weeks later. And this book actually is meant to be that. I mean, consciously, when I constructed it, I meant it to be echoey. It will be echoing songs. It will be echoing other poems, other poets. It
Songs.
echoes
And songs.
Yes, and speeches as well. And so it's deliberately done that way because I feel it creates space, that it is not just one person's loneliness during this period, but as this ghost that is floating around everywhere, they are floating around everywhere in our loneliness.
Thank you, Gwee. That's good insight, isn't it? On this very stage last night, we were talking about the publishing process. Now you've had 2 years sometimes to agree on a title. And that's important. You got to get it right.
Yeah.
But they say you also judge a book by its cover. So tell us about the cover of this book, the color as well.
Yes.
Some thought and some debate went into that.
There's also many stages because originally we didn't plan it to look like that. Someone quickly spotted when I first put this photo up on Facebook that it's allusion to Little Prince, the Little Prince cover. Yes, it is. But what happened was that originally I just did the two figures as a response to Ed King saying, "Why don't you just sketch yourself in a very quick way? Just do it in 2 minutes." But when I started to do it, I was like, no, I need one whole day, and I did that, and then we kind of like left it alone because we couldn't agree on a title, so we don't know when the book is going to come out, so we just, cast that aside. And then this year, he when we got the title and we are doing the cover, and he says, okay, I got it, Little Prince. You draw, something like that. And I was just too lazy to draw again. So I just took the old picture and just stuck it on, and I put a planet behind. That's it. So the it's two stages of artwork done. One done recently, and one actually is at least 1 or 2 years ago.
And the color, the red, accidentally changed to red.
Oh,
But
yeah,
turned
yeah,
out
yeah.
to be
Yes.
Doscon red.
Yeah, and these are exact clothes I wear, which is one thing. I mean, I think because of the COVID period, also Aking hasn't seen what my dressing style is like, right? This is how I look every day on during the COVID period, right? In slippers and walking around like that. And so I was like 2 months ago, 2 months ago, I was in Korea. I was just happily walking around, and Aking messaged me and said, yeah, it's nice, but I want the background to be blue, and so please change the hat to red. Yeah. So there, and I was wearing like this, and I was working in Korea. Then it's red. So I took my phone out and I took a photo. I said, I don't have a red phone. I don't have a red cap. It's, so he was like, oh, all right, okay. If you want to have it as a blue hat, it's not going to look striking. I said, why don't we just reverse the color? I mean, instead of a red hat, we have a red background. And and it's somehow when we did that, it kind of looked.
Yes, and it's a perfect before and after, before or during COVID, and then after that.
Oh, yes.
All right, so much about the cover. Let's get into the book. Right?
Okay.
You've structured the book, right? Seven parts. Yes. From let's get that word right. You traced it right from the beginning. Yes. Cough, and then later watch, and then protect. Just chronological, sequential.
Yes, that's not actually the structure. That's for the cartoon. Those words describe the cartoon. I was during that time also drawing for a
Yes.
Tamil science-fi journal.
Right. Okay. So these cartoons.
Yes.
That break up all your.
Called Aru, and Aru said, "Could you like do something funny, a series of cartoon for us to cheer us up?" So I said, "All right, I will do this series called Bad Poetry," and so these are installations of bad poetry that I took out as a way to break down the momentum, or else I feel like it's too much.
Yeah.
If I just go like that, but it's meant to be read as a story. So even though you can dip in and out, I suggest that if you read it from beginning to end, you will get something quite different. You will get what I told you just now about a kind of beginning with innocence, and then the different stages that all of us went through. It'll be clear because it really is systematic, and I don't think I missed out a moment when there are some change in the crisis that I didn't record, right down to the end. And as I said, strangely enough, the book wrote itself at one point. It started to become more and more personal. The COVID experience was something external for a long time, for most of us, especially in Singapore. It's something you hear the government saying, you see the news, it's down there. Then at one stage, it became about Singapore, how Singapore copes with it. And then it becomes like something in your neighborhood. And for me, it went all the way to my home. And it's no way I could predict that happening. And yet that's how it panned out. And so in that sense, I think if you read it chronologically, there will be quite a different impact than if you just dip in and out.
Well, we can't have a poetry session without reading, can we? So at this junction, I can ask you to read something.
To read something.
Yes.
What should I read?
Yes. And if you have the book with you, or tell you the page number.
Let me read something from the start, from the early
What
period.
page is that?
This, if you remember, one of the first groups of people to have been affected by the virus were the migrant workers.
Yeah.
They were affected badly. A huge percentage of the COVID numbers in Singapore were the migrant workers because of the way housing hygiene standards were like then. It unfortunately resulted in it spreading among them more. And ironically, it highlighted what is lacking in the system in protecting these people. And two of these people are my friends. I mean, they are fellow poets. They have been very active in writing poetry in the migrant poetry circle. And I did Sharif's books, and and I've chosen his poems before for anthologies. So I knew him well. And at that time, Sharif had just came back to Singapore after leaving to start his second stint in Singapore. But unfortunately, within a few weeks of him landing, COVID happened, and then there's this lockdown and all. And so there was on certain websites report on the situation with him and the others, and he was very brave in talking about the nature of fear and worry, and how despairing the migrant workers felt at that stage. And I was quite moved by as I said, we all couldn't see each other. The internet actually helped us connect. And so I wrote him this poem on page 36.
On page 36, chapter 9, class turn to page 36.
Yes, if you have the book. Dear Sharif, when you look up at the sky, do not think of emptiness. Do not fill your heart with a hole. Do not let it cry into a promise that has not yet abandoned you. Your dream is still here and well, bold as the first time you got on a plane to come breathe my different air. That day you started to write a story for yourself. And those who loved you fill you with their dreams. You water my country with your tears. Do not think of loneliness. The boundless sky has yet to be swallowed up in all these years. Do not strand yourself in fear, bitten by the greatness of oceans and wars. I, like you, am also squared within walls, losing track of time, looking up to think of my love and my family, refusing for another night to drown in the oceans between countries, the oceans within a country. And I think of you, who have done this longer, and the sky opens inside me. We dwell here now together, though we refuse to believe it is ever the same sky in which God has meant for us to live free. We shall make space for hope, draw the curtains to let love in. We shall imitate the clouds and be light. When we look up, let us not think of emptiness.
Thank you, Gwee.
Thank you. I'm thinking of other poets. The book, as I mentioned, is echoey. When I cannot meet people, when I don't know how they are, sometimes things from the past comes back, and if they are poets, especially their poems come to me. Prof. Tambu is
Prof.
gone,
Tambu, yes.
has left, so I think I'm safe to read my version of his poem. Yes, because one of
We
the things I
didn't plan
found
that.
out when I was, all alone and walking around, I realized that the landscape in Singapore was changing at the time. Some things look familiar. The hawker centers, the kopitiam, they look familiar, but new people seem to be wandering around. The what's that? The people who are supposed to catch you if you are breaking the, what do you call it? Ambassadors? Something like that, right? Yeah, COVID ambassador or something like that. They're supposed to, they're supposed to like tell you, yes,
Safe
yeah.
distancing.
Huh?
Safe distancing.
Safe distancing folks like those. They tell you to know, and then I don't know the kind of stuff that they make, they come up to you to say, I kind of realized that, hey, I can use some of these familiar Singaporean poems and use them to talk about the new Singapore. So this is my version of Ulysses by the Merlion. I'm just looking around to make sure
It's gone.
the
It's on
Poetry
page-
Festival
it's
people
on
are not
page
here as well.
50.
It's on page 50.
Yes.
To distinguish it, he's called Ulysses, okay, by the Merlion. And I let you make out who the characters are. I have crossed many streets, visited vacant hawker centers, found apex hiding in stairwells, aunties in clandestine groups exercising. Through it all, I have kept my mask on in case I encounter folks who will shout at me, having shouted at some myself. But this angmo in cargo shorts, squatting elbows on knees beside this even whiter Merlion, at intervals sipping from a paper cup, puzzles. Nothing in all my clock hours prepares me for this mystic enigma of East and West. I asked him from a distance to go home, be like everyone else who is hunkered down and growing fat on food that has been stashed away topless as Ilium's towels. They buy, they eat, only going out to buy some more. Home, he mutters, hollowing out a word he must keep faith with. He describes his long self-heaving around in luggage, having traveled, and traveled. While he experienced much, suffering but a bit, he hasn't quite found a place by that name in all the years. Not anywhere and not here. Perhaps, having gone adrift too long, this word is now elastic, as unappealing to him as the world at large. His spirit is stamped with so many vexing symbols that he no longer grasps a childish meaning. To self-isolate, he deems it proper to come keep company with a forlorn creature on our island, this image of himself. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's funnier if you know the original poem.
Some homework to do there. It wasn't just all about what was going on in Singapore, though, right? I mean, you even wrote about America,
Ah, yes.
and that's still unfolding, by the way, as we know. Trump.
Yes.
You wrote about Trump.
Yes, there's quite a bit of Trump inside there. There are a few figures that I did not know were going to recur. One is Trump, and one is my dad. They started off as just minor characters, but as things went, I don't know, they just become more and more part of the whole narrative and the structure of the time. We still have Trump now. happily or not. Much also, I guess, look how much they have already forgotten. The things, the horrors that have gone on in America during the COVID period. And if you remember, he was advocating all sorts of funny things like bleach. Yeah, so there are poems in there about that, and also about the riots that happened. And every time when I see it on TV, my heart breaks because you know that this is the pandemic time. They shouldn't be out there rioting, but yet times were so chaotic over there, and so much divisiveness that people, whether intentionally or not, have caught, given themselves into greater risk, health risk, by doing things like that. So yes, that's part of the landscape. It's not just about Singapore, because I realized during the COVID time we also became creatures of television. We follow the news like crazy, and we want to know what different countries are doing, how they are coping with it, and all. And so this is how it became, I think, in a way, also a multi-layered experience for us. We are, in one strange sense, lonely. Paradoxically, we are also communal.
Thank you. Let's move on to another topic. Songs. Right? You reference quite a number of songs in the book.
Songs.
Songs.
Yes. Yes, there are songs too.
Yeah.
Shall I read one? Sing one?
As you please.
Which one should I sing? Okay, I'm a bad singer. There are two phases during the pandemic time. The first phase, I think, is defined by the people we call COVIDians. That went and became an Oxford Dictionary word. The second half is defined by anti-vaxxers. There is a very strange thing that happened. Two very distinct groups that then begin to take root. I want to, okay, I'm going to try to sing a song. Please, I'm not a singer, so if it sounds terrible, don't fault me. A song that happened somewhere in the middle. I remember I was yearning for the vaccine to come, and when it came, there was great jubilation inside. But strangely, not all my friends share my happiness. In fact, some of people I know have become very rigid and militant anti-vaxxers. Some even got into the news. And at some stage, like I said, I can't be their friend anymore because they are really causing a lot of trouble on my social media page. But this poem came at a time when we started to get a vaccine, and I was feeling really very relieved that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This is from page 97, chapter 31. Vaccinated World. I think you know what song that is. I see Nasruddin beside Prabhu. Anna Maria is with me and you. On this table we are a vaccinated world. I hear children laugh, two lovers cry. An old gentleman rolls his siu-mai, and I guess I can love this vaccinated world. The moon and the stars, so pretty on our flag. Our vaccination level is a thing we can brag. I see friends hailing friends, saying, "You look relaxed." What they are saying, I'm glad you're vexed. I hear anti-vaxxers howl. I watch them scowl. Some are my friends, but maybe not now. All I want for myself is a vaccinated world. Mm, mm, mm. Yes, it's all I want. A vaccinated world. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
There's hope yet.
You can sing the songs in this book. All right? Don't just read them, sing them and see whether they work or not. If you can spot them.
I'm going to open the floor up. I'm going to open the floor up to the audience for any questions and responses.
Thank you. It's a good question because you can tell the writing of the poems is just half the job. The other half is to structure them into chapters and then writing those commentaries to help jog your memory what happened then, and also the kind of thoughts that I have, I try to recover as a way to frame each chapter. I don't think when I was writing the poems, the structures were in my head at all. I did not even know that it's going to be this book. But when it comes to pulling the poems together, I feel this is the only way. The only way is to tell it as a story and also tell it as a fragmented story. We have multiple experiences, we have a lot of experiences, and they're not similar. So, how to push the story on at the same time allowing different trajectories? So, some chapters deal with me, some chapters deal with my reflection on life, some chapters deal with global happenings, ironies I see, and so I kind of make sure that, at least two of these kinds of chapters don't go one after the other. They're all quite nicely spaced out. And so I think you get when you're reading, I guess, I hope, um, a diversity of occurrences. Things happen. Many things actually happen. Not that we remember now, but I hope the books help you kind of like remember that it did it did happen a lot of really funny things.
Yeah.
Right. As a poet, you have many voices in your head. Voices of poems you read, and they are always there haunting the words you choose. And this is in part that there are some poems that I feel those overbearing personalities came over and took over the way I see things. You raised just now the example of the Ulysses by the Malayan poem. I feel like, in that sense, it's a response to the reality to kind of rejiggle that world I learned from Edwin Tambu and try to apply it to the world that I'm seeing now, and then see whether there's a different meaning, different power that comes out of it. And I think there is. I have that for that, and I think there's another poem from another famous Singaporean poet, Arthur Yap. Actually, Arthur Yap featured quite a bit in these poems. In this book, I think at least 2 or 3 poems of his. I kind of like have fun with it. There's also I don't just do this intertextual thing once. Sometimes some poems and some songs became basis of a different poem later on. So there is this very odd repetition where I'm doing the same thing again, but it has changed. The meaning that I have taken from that source has changed. It now moves me to something else. So I guess in that way, I'm also exploring that. And I mean, intertextuality seems to suggest that always we draw only one single meaning and then we refer to something else. But the thing is that sometimes, depending on the context, that meaning changes. Uh, I, I want to bring, like, there are a few examples I can bring in relation to this book. For example, every chapter will also have a epigraph that epigram that epigraph that is from a book, and they are all from books that I read or reread during the pandemic time. So when I was framing this book that time, I decided, I think I better take out all the books that I've read during those 3 years, and then see whether I can take something from there and put it into the chapter, into each chapter. But the funny thing is that I feel like there's no single way of doing it. So some of them are used humorously. That means it's just with wordplay. But others, if you know the book, it means something else. It means something else that I'm connecting up to. So really, it's up to how you can also totally ignore that and just enjoy the book, enjoy the poem in themselves. But yes, those things are meant to be there, operating at different level. And there's, for example, even the chapter title themselves are also referring, echoing other things. They're all meant to. The whole feel I ultimately would like you to have is, if you're a reader, you'll find echoes. And I hope the echoes give you a sense of the spaciousness that we were thrust into, even as we were each lonely during that time. We have culture to fill the space. Okay, thank you. That's a good point. Firstly, also the text, the quality of the paper.
Yeah.
This kind of paper, I know a lot of people hate because they say after a while it's going to brown and it's going to look really ugly. That's intended.
Deliberate.
Aking and I debated about this, and he says, look, this is how I see the production of this book, and I never challenged him when it comes to production. He says, yes, unlike your other books where your paper kind of like stay white after 20 years, he felt like this book, it has to show age. So in a couple of months, if this book starts to age, that's intended, right? And he warned me, if we can't sell a certain amount of books, these books are not going to be stocked in the bookshelves because, bookshops are really into books looking nice and neat and all, and say, are you sure your readers are able to get rid of this amount within this period? I said, well, yeah, let's try to sell as many as we can before they turn brown. Okay, but yes, the browning effect is intended. That's one thing. Secondly, you mentioned the structuring.
The layout.
The structure has to be done in such a way where every chapter is different. And this is the part where Akin got very angry. Maybe not angry, like he never gets angry. He's more like, I'm not gonna do it. You are gonna do it because it's gonna give me a lot of nightmare if I have to do all the margin layouts and all. So he actually kept the same form presentation as I gave him in PDF. The reason is because I wanted enough commentary for each poem. Some poems demand a lot of commentaries, some very little, and some commentaries are helpful and some commentaries are not helpful. And this is why it should be quite a fun book to read, because sometimes the commentaries are meant to distract you from what the poem is actually saying. The reason why I do that is that I think there's a lot of possibilities of interaction between commentaries and poems themselves. I don't want it to be something that teacher can picture and say, okay, kid, you read the commentary, then you understand your poem. It's not fun. It's not fun for me. It's fun for me if I can play tricks all the time, and you can find out for yourself whether it's useful or it's entirely useless, or it sends you down a rabbit hole that has nothing to do with the poem. But in itself, it should do one thing that my previous books of poems were not able to do, which is to show the different sides of me. When I wrote love poems, I think people who are used to my humor poems were kind of shocked. They say, hey, you know, not the kind of thing that we want to read from you. On the other hand, people who have read my love poems, when they go to my humor poems, they say, you know, yeah, you're becoming childish again. And then when I wrote my philosophical poem, they're all like, okay, this is too academic, you know, we don't deal with this. But all these were part of me. I don't know how to show you that all these are part of how I think and how to operate. And I think this book is perfect. Finally, I can bring all this all together because sometimes I feel I want to write this type of poems, and sometimes I feel that the situation requires me to write another kind of poem. And so that's how the chapters are structured. And internally, yeah, the comments are done that way, you know, to at least pretend to give you a handle into the poem. Pretend, because they're not really all very helpful. Warning first.
Thank you.
I did mention to you that I did not expect my dad to become a big part of the book. It is one of those weird things that happen. And when he passed on, the book ends because he passed on at a few months before the pandemic was over. And so that got a lot of emotions out of me. And they went into that chapter titled Death Note. And when he passed on, I read back all those poems in this book that were before that. They have a very haunting feel. It's almost like something was always going to happen, you know. And when it did, that's that. Anyway, let's get to that chapter.
Page 145, if you have the book with
Yes.
you.
Let me read the last one, which is Dear Dad. I started off with Dear Sharif, and this one is Dear Dad.
147.
Page 147. Dear Dad, the day was always coming. The question is whether we had a plan. So I realized today how we never hugged. Not that I needed us to. While your displeasure took up many speeches, your encouragement was often mute. It had the presence of an inanimate thing. It was why I have sailed lost in an ocean of my seeking, while you watched on and did no more. My memory was filled with you watching. And I realized today how this story was always going to be about you. How you make yourself matter. Because the day was always coming. In a year, I watched you change. I watched back how you stopped coping and started dying. And I realized it was as if all my life you kept me for this time, without memory of your touch, without such intimacy. You had made it easier to grieve. And it would have worked if I did not grow to overthink. And now, your absence itself has become a memory, making it difficult to let go the things you would not be, so that I would not fill my life with you.